Hey, Collab Coach here yet again to have conversations with great and awesome people. Today I have Jacky. She's an amazing person, and we're gonna have a great conversation about emotional abuse. It's something that's near and dear to her heart, and I have definitely experienced some type of emotional abuse in my life, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that. So, Jacky, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, Tell me, what does emotional abuse mean?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Emotional abuse to me means literally what it sounds like. Emotional abuse is the abuse of your emotions through manipulation. So, the way that someone can manipulate you is basically when you get close to someone, whether it's a friend or a parent or a romantic partner, is that you typically share your deepest and truest emotions with that person, and you tell them all of your insecurities, and they use this against you when you're having a disagreement. So to me, I never realized that my fights with other people in my past relationships were wrong. I know that they were hurtful, but I always thought that having fights with someone was a normal thing to feel really hurt by. But I've learned now that someone using these types of crude comments against you is emotional abuse.
Mhm.
And that's why you feel such a deep pain. In the relationship I'm in now, we have disagreements and we have fights, but nothing that I feel so insecure about is ever brought up. So that's the vast difference between having a disagreement with an emotionally abusive person and a healthy person.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because of the fact that you can tell when things are good, but the when you know that things kind of feel wrong, but and you don't really know how to express it, I think that can play on the same thing as emotional abuse because you know we, especially in society, we think abuse is like maybe physical, or when we think like, okay, well, you don't have any bruises, you don't have any scars, so is it really abuse? But when you actually break down abuse, as you said, it could be many different things: manipulation. It could be someone yelling at you constantly, or belittling you, or telling you you're not good enough, constantly telling you that you're not good enough. It weighs on you, and it starts to change your attitude, it starts to change your behavior, and your self-worth starts to diminish. And I think that's really, really important to talk about, especially in our day and age where we're seeing people jumping in and out of relationships and they not knowing really why. And it may be something that's deep rooted into maybe a past experience before what they're currently going through. So Jackie, talk to me. Like, what do you think are like the triggers that you should look out for as far as like within emotional abuse? Or what are some things that you have seen that is like, okay, this is emotional abuse?
Well, first of all, I just want to touch on how you said that most people just think of abuse in the physical form,
Mhm.
and I just really wanted to hone in on that because I know in my experience, I would always feel like my relationship felt bad, but I always would comfort myself by saying, "Well, I'm not being physically injured, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure why this feels so bad, but it certainly can't be abuse." And
Hmm.
that's why it's so important to speak about emotional abuse, because I think that more people really need to know that this exists. This is a form of abuse. And I really would love to share like what it feels like and what it looks like. So aside from your partner using your insecurities against you, emotional abuse can look like you being cursed at. No one likes to be cursed at, especially not by the person that they love the most.
Hmm.
So if you tell your partner, please do not curse at me next time we have a disagreement, and they are cursing at you anyway next time, that's
Hmm.
definitely emotional abuse. You have set a boundary and they are crossing your boundary. So for me, in the past, I have been cursed at so many times. I've been called a hoe, a slut, a bitch, everything under the sun. And I have asked multiple times, like, please don't speak to me like that. And
Hmm.
it would just happen repeatedly. So that's definitely a sign of emotional abuse. There's other signs as well that I haven't experienced personally, but I have realized that emotional abuse can come in the form of cheating. So you can have a partner who's constantly unfaithful, and they will kind of try to manipulate you into forgiving them, and then they will be unfaithful again.
Mm.
So being unfaithful repeatedly is emotional abuse, because your partner has apologized to you and said to you that they will not repeat this behavior, and they continue to repeat this behavior. So that is abusive.
Wow, I really like that example. Well, both examples, the one with the cursing, like you say, you have experienced that in real life, and you have to deal with that. But the second one as well about behavior that's being consistently done, especially when you ask that person or try to show that person that, hey, I don't like that. I really don't appreciate that, but they continue to start doing it regardless of the fact they're not really putting your feelings into consideration. They're not putting your emotions into consideration or your well-being into consideration, and that could be a form of abuse as well. And I really, really, really appreciate that example because it's something that cheating is maybe something that people see as physical, but it also has emotional implications in it as well. And of course, people tackle cheating maybe to the point where it gets to like a divorce or breaking up. But what do people do with those emotions afterwards? Like the betrayal, the heartache, the disappointment, the hopes and the expectations that you had in the relationship is now gone. How do you recover from that? How do you heal from that? And that's really powerful. That's a really good example. So what do you say to people who um, think emotional abuse is love, or the people that say that this is a part of love and it has to be accepted, like this is a form of love and I have to just deal with it? What do you say to those people?
Well, I was certainly in that position before, because I believe that the love that we accept is the love that we have been taught to receive.
Hmm.
So I have realized at this point in my life that emotional abuse is something that was part of my upbringing. And that's why when I started to experience it in a romantic relationship, I never really thought it was so bad. I really thought that love just hurt. That is what my experience was. So when it was always painful and I was always so deeply hurt, I just thought it was normal. And so I don't think that enough people know about trauma bonds. And when you're raised to receive a certain type of love, that is a trauma bond when it is a negative form of expressing love. And if that's the only way you're aware of receiving love, you will choose a romantic partner who hurts you. And therefore, when love hurts, you feel like this is love for you. There should be pain involved. And I also, based on my experience, know that it can be very addictive to be with someone who hurts you, because the highs and the lows can bring on euphoria,
Yeah.
because you get so low and then the person apologizes to you, usually with a grand gesture,
Mhm.
and it brings you to a euphoric phase. And not only is it a trauma bond, but it's part of the emotional abuse cycle. And this is exactly how the person who is abusing you continues to manipulate you, because they tear you down and then they apologize to you by providing grand gestures, whether that may mean, um, what's the word? I'm sorry, commenting on your appearance, like giving you compliments.
Mhm.
They That is a form that they will groom you, and they will also buy you gifts. They'll use whatever they know it is that you enjoy the most. They
Yeah.
will use those tactics to reel you back in, and then they'll tear you down again. And you, as the victim, will feel the effects of euphoria. So for you, it is addictive. So I think it's just hard to realize, like, you are experiencing a trauma bond. You're not experiencing love. It is a bond created by trauma. And that's important to know.
Yeah, that trauma bond is a big, big topic, especially when we're talking about relationships, because trauma bonds can either start early as your childhood. You know, the way that your parents have treated you or try to show you that hey, the emotional abuse is a part of love. And because they're your parents or they're your significant other, that you just have to deal with it. Because you personally have love and affection for them, you care about them, and you don't want them to be out of your life. So you start to accept it.
Yeah.
And just because you're accepting it doesn't mean that they see that. They rather, as you said, they rather see it as a way to control you. They
Mhm.
rather see it as a way to use you and
Yeah.
to manipulate the situation in their favor. Like they know what you like, so they will tease you with the things that you like, and not really give it to you out of the kindness of their heart, but just to make sure that you don't leave.
Mhm.
And it's like a it's like you're literally in a bottomless pit. Like you can't escape from it
Mhm.
because of the fact that this is what you know, this is what you've always known, and this is the pattern that you're used to. So
Yeah.
why would you want to leave that situation? Because that's all you know. But and I really appreciate what you said, that it's the love that you're used to, the love that you've been accustomed to, is that what you start to seek, and you start to want to have in your life for long periods of time in relationships. You may have learned that from, like I said, from childhood, and you may have taken it to a relationship, or you may have learned it from previous relationships, and now this is all you know as far as how relationships work. But what would you say to people who are trying to find another solution? Like they're tired of it. Like as you said that you were in a relationship or relationships like this for X amount of periods of time. Like what was the thing that you finally realized that it's time for me to leave, or it's time for me to change, or there are other ways to love? What what would you say is that moment that you realized
Well, I have a lot to say about this, but
that?
I know I shared this with you before, but
Mhm,
I always like really idolized relationships on movies and on Disney movies and things like that.
mhm,
And I always just really wished that that was my life. But I always felt like, of course, it's on TV, it's not real, so I can't have that.
yeah.
But I always knew that there was a version of love that I wanted and that I knew I was providing to the people that I loved that I just was not receiving. And a lot of the reason for that was just like you said, this is my partner, this is my mother, this is my sister, whatever the case may be. So I need to put up with it.
Mhm.
But I've learned over time that you don't have to put up with anyone's abuse just because they're blood related or just because they are a partner. So, what brought me to my breaking point was I do have children, and I know not everyone has children, so this
Mhm.
won't be a breaking point for them.
Right.
But I realized that my children are watching this dynamic, and this is what they're learning a relationship is supposed to be like, because that's what I'm teaching them. And I stayed in the relationship because I desperately did not want them to be what people call products of divorce.
Mm.
But I ended up just realizing that I'm not doing any good by staying in the relationship. I'm actually causing more harm because I realized that they're going to grow to be these men who are this type of partner to their partners. And not only that, they're going to grow to treat me that way. So not only will my partner treat me that way, but my children will treat me that way as well. And then ultimately, my entire surrounding will be people mistreating me because I am teaching them that I accept that and that that is okay. Um, I did have a lot of these thoughts over the years, but ultimately, what brought me to my decision is actually seeing a therapist and kind of like sharing what was going on with my relationship. And my therapist did let me know it sounds like you're being emotionally abused. And she kind of like casually mentioned it.
Wow.
And it honestly brought my world crashing down for someone to tell me that I was being abused
Mm.
because I always had an inkling about it, but I never heard the word emotional abuse in my life. My brain was spinning.
Yeah.
And I just thought in that moment, like, I'm not an abuse victim. I'm
Mhm.
not going to deal with that. Now that I know there's a name to it, that's not what I'm going to put up with. So I pretty much just drove away from that appointment. Like, I'm not dealing with this anymore.
Wow.
Um, and so I made my decision based on a therapist just casually telling me it sounds like you're being emotionally abused. I ended up Googling emotional abuse and learning so much about it. And I realized that is exactly what I was dealing with. And I really wish I had known sooner. I definitely don't regret my life experiences because it made me who I am today. And I understand I had to endure that for as many years as I did so that I could become the woman that I am today. But I know that if I would have known sooner, I would have found my happiness sooner. And we all only have one short life, and we all deserve to be as happy as we can possibly be. So that's why it's important to spread awareness about emotional abuse so that people know, like, this is happening to me. This is a form of abuse and I don't need to put up with it.
Wow, you said a lot. You said a lot, and I feel the energy and the growth from you, from the situation that you described to the way you are now. Because now you're speaking as if from a person of wisdom and knowledge of like, wow, I went through this, I've experienced this amount of time, and now I've learned from this, and
Mhm,
I want to teach other people about it.
mhm,
And this the signs to see, is this what you're going through? Is this something that's similar to me, or maybe completely different, but it's all within the same umbrella? And I think it's really powerful that you're willing to tell your story, and you're willing to express what you've experienced throughout your life and how it's made you who you are today. So, what is life after emotional abuse? How has life been after emotional
okay, loaded question.
abuse? So let's
Um,
let's break it down. So after you experience what you experienced,
mhm.
um, how was life after you transitioned from that part, from that chapter to this new chapter that you're in now? What was going on, and how were you able to? What were the emotions that you're feeling? Basically, I guess I'll make it a little simple. What were the emotions that you're feeling after emotional
Yeah, I'll be happy to share that. So, of course, I had to tell the person who I believe to be the love of my life that I did not want to be together anymore, which to this date is the most courageous thing I've ever done. And of course, after that, I had no idea what was next for me. Ever since I was a child, I wanted to be a wife and a mom. And so I had to obtain that. And I was very lost after that. And I don't really have supportive parents. I don't say that I have like a support system. So I was very alone after that, and honestly just felt very worthless. I started to open my eyes to what my life was actually like during this relationship. And the traumatic memories were a lot. And I went through a very low point. I got very thin. I just wasn't eating. I wasn't being the best mother that I could be. And I was sad. I was sad. I tried to cover that up by doing many things. And ultimately, it just wore down on me. I really just didn't want to be here. And a lot of that is the reason why I'm passionate about this, because I would never want someone else to feel as worthless as I did. I'm not entirely sure like where the strength came from to overcome that, but I did. And so I'm here today. And honestly, emotional abuse is still a part of my life. I'm in a healthy and great relationship that makes me so happy. It's everything that I wished for in the Disney movies, and I still struggle. I struggle a lot. I self sabotage a lot. I don't feel worthy of happiness a lot. I have depression. I have anxiety. I see a therapist. So, working on myself is a work in progress. It's been 4 years since I've been out of this relationship, and I'm still recovering. And I know it's going to be a long road to recovery, but it's something that I'm willing to work on because I now know that I'm worthy of happiness and I'm allowed to have a good life. So I'm not going to let this get me down. It may get me down for maybe like a week sometimes, and I really do go through it, but I always come out on top.
abuse? And I love what you said, that you went through all of this, but
Mhm.
now you see, it's like you see your self-worth now. You see your importance. You see how special you are. And as you said, you have one short life. So you have to live it for the moment, and you have to live it the best way you can. Um, and just talking to you, I think the strength that you're saying that you don't know where it came from, I think you always had it. It's just that it may have been just suppressed. It may have just been pushed down because you were so focused on what was in your face at the moment. But I think as you started to realize your self worth, you're able to now accept the strength that you always had, and now you use it to your advantage because
Yeah.
you're talking right now as a person that survived. You're a survivor. You're talking as if you're a person that now you are willing to help other people. Like it's one thing for you to end a situation and be like, okay, I'm done with it. I never want to talk about it again. I never want to share this again. It's done. It's in the past. But you're not only trying and succeeding to heal from it, but now you're trying to be an advocate for it. You're now telling people that, hey, I've been through this, and if you've been through this too, hey, look at me for an example, and use me as an example that it's possible. It's
Mhm.
possible to get past this, and you're now living that fairy tale love that you've been wanting to have all your life, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Um, I guess my last question for you is, what would you say to someone that is going through emotional abuse right now? What is something that you would say to them? Maybe something that you wish that someone would have told you earlier, or maybe something that you felt that was very powerful that helped you realize that this situation was not helping me and it was rather toxic. So what would you say to that person that's going through this right now that's maybe watching this video?
I would say a lot. Honestly, when I do speak about emotional abuse, I'm never speaking to the person who has overcome it.
Mhm.
I mean, we are a group of survivors, and I appreciate that. But I'm more so here to pinpoint those people who are putting up with it and dealing with it, and they are in it. I want someone to come across me and realize I want to be their wake up factor,
Mhm.
because not everyone can get a therapist. Not everyone is going to get a therapist to tell them you're being emotionally abused, casually. So I am always speaking to people who are currently going through it. But what I would say is, of course, view my story as an example that there is happiness after abuse. There is a better life for you out there, but it's not going to be served to you on a platter. You need to go get it.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stems around self love. I can definitely say that I didn't love myself, and I was so desperate that I just accepted anything that was given to me. But at this point, I basically saved my own life. And so I'm very self loving, and I will not accept anything less. And I just want other women in particular, I know that men may be watching this, but I'm more so an advocate for women, to just know that they are deserving of that love, and that they don't need to be miserable. They don't need to cry every day. And that there is someone out there that is going to love the heck out of them
Mhm.
if they just stop wasting their time with the wrong person.
Wow. Powerful, powerful. There's nothing I can say after that. I think you, I
I,
think you said it all. I don't know what to say. I guess I can say I'm a self-worth coach. I guess that's all I can say. But I loved it because you are describing the root of it all. I think a lot of people will be surface level and say, "Oh, you don't deserve that." No, it goes back to you, and it goes back to what are you putting up with? What? How do you see yourself, and what are you accepting in your life? Do
Mhm,
you love yourself to the point that you're willing to walk away from that relationship? Do you love yourself to the point that you're not going to put up with that abuse anymore or how
mhm,
people treat you? Do you even love yourself? And I think those are beautiful questions to for anyone going through what you have went through or something similar to ask on a daily basis because it's easy to fall into a relationship and not see your self worth in it. And you're
mhm.
just trying to please someone else. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing that happens in relationships a lot.
Mhm,
But once you realize your self worth in a relationship, you realize that relationships are not just about the other person, it's about you as well. You
mhm.
guys are both getting something out of the relationship. And when you realize you're not getting something out of the relationship, that's when you should start questioning, is this relationship worth it? I
Yep.
think that's beautiful in itself. So, Jackie, you have been amazing. You've been wonderful. I do appreciate it. How can people reach you? How can people reach you if they do want to talk to you about emotional abuse, or they need just someone that maybe looks like them and has been through similar situations? How can they contact you?
I do have an Instagram. It is private, but feel free to request me. It's at love, peace, and kindness. No underscores, no periods, all together. So you can certainly reach out to me there. My DMs are always open.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much again for your time. I do appreciate it. Thank you for being so open with me. I know it's not easy, and I know that you're making a difference with this. Thank you so much for sharing, and we'll talk again in the future. We
Oh, yes, for
definitely
sure.
will.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it is a pleasure. All right, thank you.
All right, bye. Have a good night.
You too.